Hello and welcome to our session on highly selective schools. My name is Dr. Johanna Massey. I am the manager of college readiness for Summit Public Schools. And a little bit about me, I did my undergraduate at Brown University, my master's at Cal State Long Beach in counseling, and my PhD in sociology at the University of Michigan. So I've seen a lot of different institutions, and I'm very excited to be talking to you about this topic today. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to go over what are highly selective schools, why they are so competitive, what kinds of students do they accept, what can students do to improve their odds of being accepted, and what should students keep in mind if they are applying to highly selective schools. But first, and most importantly, college admissions are not a reflection of students' values or worth. There's a lot of hype around these big name schools, and it can be very attractive, obviously, to go to one of them, but it's important to keep perspective about the college admissions process. So students who are accepted are not necessarily smarter or more qualified or more likely to be successful than students who are not. It's very much a numbers game. Realistically, highly selective schools receive many more applicants than the number that they can accommodate. So they make tough choices about, can we take this student, can we take that student? And sometimes it's hard to understand, oftentimes it's hard to understand what choices they make and why they might take one student over another. So what are highly selective schools? I'm sure you have some names that come to mind, maybe some Ivy League covered institutions in the Northeast, maybe some very prestigious, very exciting tech schools. I'm sure there's some that come to mind. We like to think of this category of highly selective schools as lottery schools. Now, we call them a lottery school because they have very low acceptance rates that can be in the 5 to 10% range. And getting in is like winning the lottery. The odds, no matter how you look at it, are against you. Every single student applying to these lottery schools is amazing and probably do well there. So again, it's a bit of a numbers game. We don't know. We can't predict who are they going to choose one year, who are they going to choose another year. If you're interested in learning more about the profiles of the students who get into these schools, you can see the average GPA and test scores using your overgrad account. What are considered some highly selective or lottery schools? Well, first, all the Ivy League schools. Secondly, the top schools on the rankings, the national rankings, particularly US News and World Report. That one is very popular among people, despite how controversial it can be. Schools that have low admit rates, and that would be lower than 20%. So less than 1 in 5 students get accepted. And these could be, for example, Stanford, Caltech, Claremont McKenna, Pomona, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and USC, just to name some in California. And then there's schools that employers consider top tier. These would be the schools where employers are very specific about recruiting. There's a pipeline from an institution to joining their company. This also includes med school and law school pipelines as well. So some hard numbers. What are admit rates at these highly selective schools? For the fall 2020, Harvard had the lowest admit rate at 4.9%, so less than 5%, less than 1 in 20 students got in. And here are some other numbers for some other schools. We have Stanford at 5.2%, ranging up to Berkeley at 17.6%. Like we said, these numbers can be scary. Not everybody's going to get in. There's no other way to think about it. And I will say that the fall 2020 acceptance rates tended to trend a little higher than they had in previous years because of COVID. So what do you do about this? It's important to realize that, keep in mind, that college admissions is not an exact science. I know people are looking for a formula. It's very popular to read essays online like how I got into Harvard, and this is what you need to do. There's no roadmap that you can take to get into these highly selective schools because every year is different. Every college is different, every student is different, and the high school context is different. It's very difficult to predict, and you can't make a game plan that will assure you yes, you'll get in. So what makes these highly competitive schools so competitive? Well, first, more students are applying to college, and this is a good thing. We want as many students as possible to have access to higher education. But there's the caveat that as more students apply to college, the numbers of seats at these top schools has not increased dramatically. So there's there's an obvious dissonance between, well, more people are applying, but we can't take any more students. And students are applying to many more schools. We have students are applying in some cases to 10 or more colleges, which is something we do not recommend here at Summit. But we've had students who've applied to 20 or more schools. So there are just more applications out there in the world. Another reason is certain schools may become trendy. This could be because they did really well in the NCAA tournament. Maybe a president's daughter has decided to enroll there. All sorts of reasons. And these schools will often see a bump in their application numbers for the next year. Students will apply to school just for the name or just to see. So maybe students have grown up with this idea that I want to go to X college, and it comes time, no matter what, no matter whether the school is a good fit for them or not, they're set on applying. Or maybe students are on the cusp of whether it's their grades or their extracurriculars would make them good fits again, and they think, I'll throw my hat in the ring just to see. Again, getting back to this idea that more students are applying overall, there's this awareness that college education is a must in this economic climate that we're in. So 70% of jobs require some form of higher education, and students are aware of this, and this is good. This is a good thing, but it also means that getting into these schools can be more challenging. And then there's on the college side, there is an incentive for schools to keep their admit rates down because that makes them look desirable and more prestigious. So there's this idea that if they get more applicants, and then accept fewer people, their rankings actually will increase. And this is the type of thing that shows up on rankings like US News and World Report. So what kind of students are accepted? Well, at the outset, students with very good grades, students with perfect or near perfect GPA scores are often very competitive at these top schools. Now, historically, test scores have also been an important part of the whole application package, but a number of schools have this past cycle experimented with being test optional and are even moving forward with, well, what does test optional look like for our institution? So it's hard to say what's going to happen with testing. Students with incredible or unique stories, students who have done extraordinary things. I read an article where they were talking, a school was talking about like, who do they want to admit? And they said, students who will change the world. Very lofty goal. Students who can show on many levels that they're curious, excited, and involved learners. Who's going to be exciting in the classroom? Who are professors going to want to have available to work with and to teach and to learn from? Students who are going to contribute a lot to the college community. What are they going to participate in? What kinds of conversations will they spark among their peers? Again, this is on the college side. Students who the schools think will actually attend if they are accepted. There's something called yield, and that's the percentage of students who say yes once they accept and actually enroll. And colleges want to have that number be high because that is another prestige factor. Students who have connections. This could be a legacy. They have parents or grandparents or other relatives who have enrolled there. They may be athletes. They may have donated buildings to the campus. There's all sorts of ways where they, in many ways, can be considered backdoor admissions, although that's frowned upon now because of recent scandals in college admissions, but it is a reality. And sometimes none of this matters. Oftentimes, none of this matters. It's hard to say why a school might choose one student over another. But one thing you can control is that character is important. You'll hear when top schools are talking about their admissions process that they do a holistic read of the application. And this means that they don't assign points to say like, well, if you have a 4.0 GPA, you get X number of points. If you have this test score, you get X number of points, and they add it all up. No, they're reading the application as an entire package. So they look at their test scores, they look at the essays, the recommendations, the activities that the students do. And some of the qualities that they're looking for are the student's leadership capacity, risk-taking, initiative, sense of social responsibility, a commitment to service, and other unique talents or abilities that the student will bring to the campus. So what can students do to improve their odds of being accepted? GPA is the top factor in admissions. Even starting as early as freshman year, it is important to do as well as possible in your classes. You can start planning for your essays, your letters of recommendation, and your extracurricular activities, again, as early as possible in high school. Colleges are looking for the authentic voice. What has made you who you are? Where do your passions lie? And how do you express them in a way that they can understand that this is what you're going to bring to the campus? Students should show depth over breadth. What does this mean? This means that colleges are not looking for somebody necessarily who has done a ton of different activities in a very shallow manner. They would rather you take a few activities and really excel at them. And again, demonstrate your passion, demonstrate how you've grown, demonstrate how these activities have contributed to the world around you. Just as an aside, my brother-in-law actually, he went to Harvard, and his freshman year, he went to a reception with some admissions officers, and when he introduced himself, they said, "Oh, you were the jazz pianist for your year." So there's these hooks that you can give if you can convey if you're passionate about a particular area, and colleges will pick up on that and they will appreciate it. Test scores, again, COVID has had an impact on how schools are thinking about standardized testing, and this is a question that's very much in flux. We recommend that at this point, 2021, you focus more on your grades and, again, these intangibles, and less on test scores because we don't know where that's going to go. Prove your fit. Colleges want to know why you'll be a good asset to their institutions. They don't want to hear that, oh, you're in New York and I want to go to school in New York. They want to know, what programs are you interested in? What about the school's mission is attractive to you? Again, they're going to be thinking about, what is this student going to bring? You need to be able to put forth a strong argument that I'm going to contribute X, Y, and Z to your school that nobody else can. Applying early, with the caveat, if you are sure. Now, if you ever look at application admission stats, you'll usually see that for early action or early decision, they have a higher acceptance rate. And this translates into people thinking, well, if I apply early, I have a better chance of getting in. Now, that is sort of true, but it's also true that the students who apply early tend to have chosen that school because it is their number one choice and it is a good fit for them. So there's a good match, and in which case they're more attractive to be accepted to school. But particularly when it's an early decision school. That acceptance is binding. So you should not apply to a school, especially early decision, unless you are sure that you want to go there. So what should students keep in mind if they're applying to highly selective schools? Well, first, don't stack your application list with only highly selective schools. It is important to have a balance of schools. You need to have a mixture of what we would consider these lottery schools, reach, likely, and safety schools on your list. It's important to always have a plan B because, again, we don't know. You can't predict whether you're going to get in or not, and you don't want to be in a situation come May when you don't have many options to choose from. So colleges evaluate students in the context of the high school they attend, which means Summit. So when you send in your application, colleges will receive a profile of the school site that you're from, and they'll know exactly what kind of school Summit is, what the educational profile is, what the coursework looks like, and where alumni have been accepted. So they'll be able to understand, okay, this is how the student did relative to the opportunities they had access to. Many colleges will only accept a certain number of students from any one school. This again is a reality. I will say, for example, there are some high schools in Palo Alto where half of the senior class will apply to Stanford. And realistically, Stanford is not going to take that many students from one school. So again, this gets back to the idea that it's a numbers game, and you often just can't tell why a student would have chosen, the way a school would have chosen one student over another. There's this sense that you may be competing with each other to earn a spot at one of these top schools. And that's why it is not a good idea to just talk to your friends and sort of all decide to apply to the same school. You really want to pick the schools that are going to be best for you. So most important of all is that fit is the number one factor to deciding about where you want to apply to school. So, like I said, the selectivity of college does not equate to the quality of the experience. You want to find a match between the college and where you'll be able to really exercise your passions. And this can be not necessarily maybe a name brand school, maybe a smaller school where you'll really thrive. Because it is possible for you to thrive at many different institutions. There are thousands of schools out there, and it is worth your time to research them and consider maybe a school I hadn't heard of. Maybe this has the best program for me. And it's worth researching those schools and talking to those professors and imagining yourself there. You should be excited about all your college options. And this is, again, why we suggest a balanced and broad list when you're coming up with your college list. Explore, you never know what's out there. I would recommend that you don't try to reverse engineer the college applications to try to guess, well, this is the kind of student that Stanford is looking for. That's counterproductive. Focus now on how to be great at things you love, because getting into a good school is going to be the result of achievement and not the cause. So here we have some additional resources I'd like to share. The College Readiness team maintains our website at college.summitps.org, where we have a wealth of resources about the entire college application process. You can also take a look at ivycoach.com. The Khan Academy offers a series of videos where they talk about the different kinds of institutions and the advantages and disadvantages of each. There's a wonderful book as well as a website that's called Colleges That Change Lives. And this is a group of schools that tend to be liberal arts schools, but they might not be the most flashy with names, but they are known for having excellent educational experiences. So thank you for watching this presentation today. I hope you learned a lot. Again, our website is college.summitps.org, or you could also email us at collegereadiness@summitps.org. Thank you again.